My sister is a single mom, and my family is calling me selfish for not wanting to babysit, so I said bet and showed them how they could babysit too, and now all of them are being real quiet. I, 19F, am living at home, working a part-time job, doing some freelance work, and taking online courses in preparation for attending college next year. My sister, 25F, had her first child 8 months ago. The father isn't involved and only pays child support. My mom is excited to have her first grandchild, and constantly offers to look after the baby so my sister can feel at ease working full-time and have some time for herself to relax afterward. The thing is, about 70% of the time, I'm the one looking after the baby. While I admit that I enjoy it and like spending time with him, I can't help but feel mad because they don't have any consideration for my time. Mom will drop the baby off while I'm in the middle of my lessons because you can always watch the recordings later or just ask someone to tell you what it was about. Or when I'm working on my freelance projects, she says, looking after the baby doesn't really require much, when I complain about getting delayed in my projects. My breaking point happened last week, when my mother and sister left the baby with me for a whole day, because I mistakenly told them I didn't have to work and would be staying at home to catch up on some pending stuff and study. I told them both they were irresponsible, and they called me a spoiled brat. That night, my grandma and other members of the extended family were calling and sending me messages about the importance of helping family and to understand that my sister doesn't have it easy being a single mom. I got mad and sent a message to the family group chat saying that they were right, helping family is important, and we should all be supportive of my sister. I then proceeded to write a schedule in which all of us could take care of the baby. Since one aunt visits grandma on Monday and Wednesday mornings, they could babysit those days. Eldest cousin and her siblings are at their home on Friday afternoons? Well, they can babysit at that time, and so on. I left Saturday mornings and Tuesday evenings as my time to babysit. My sister and my mom were very pleased with the arrangement. The other family, not so much. And when someone pointed out that my sister didn't get the baby for a whole day, discussions about my sister being an irresponsible mother started, with my mother trying to defend her. Am I wrong for causing this? How come they were expecting me to be my sister's unpaid nanny, but then they get offended when the same thing is being forced on them? I may be the jerk because I caused this and don't regret it one bit. Update 1. A lot of things happened, and I'm finally in the mood to write an update, so here it goes. My sister did follow the babysitting schedule that involved our extended family, and, well, they weren't happy. 2 days after my post, she left my nephew with one of our aunts. My aunt was meeting some friends for brunch and had to take the baby with her. The baby was fussy and crying, so she had to come home early. Understandably, my aunt was pissed off. I had agreed to babysit the next day, and that's when things began going downhill. My nephew is used to being with me, but this time he was very fussy and coughing, and I thought something was odd. Mom wasn't home, and I tried to call her, but she didn't answer until about 2 hours later. She came home, checked my nephew, and he had a light fever. Of course, we called my sister, and she blamed our aunt for taking the baby out, because how dare she have a life while being forced to babysit. She accused our aunt in the family chat, and a whole discussion blew up. Suddenly, my mom and sister remembered I was the one who involved the whole family with the babysitting schedule, and then I was the one at fault. That was my breaking point. I ended up yelling at my sister, calling her negligent and a part-time mother for my nephew. Not my proudest moment, and I immediately regretted it, not gonna lie. My mother countered that if my dad, who passed away 5 years ago, listened to me, he would have been very disappointed in me. That broke me because I was really close to him, and he always put family above all. Still, I was mad, so I said that I expected my sister to reimburse me the amount I took out from my college fund in full. For context, when my sister and I were born, Dad and Mom set up a college fund for each of us. Dad always encouraged us to study and improve ourselves, and when my nephew was born, I took $5,000 from my fund to start one for him to honor my dad, as I'm sure he would have done the same. After that, I packed a bag and took an Uber to my best friend's apartment. I told him what happened, and he and his girlfriend invited me to stay with them as long as I needed. I blocked my mother, sister, and the rest of the family, and spent the following days both avoiding them and worrying about my nephew. Last Friday, I received a call from an unknown number. It was one of my eldest aunt's daughters. She and her family live in another state, so they mostly follow the drama from afar. My cousin told me they were coming to visit and that my aunt was going to have a serious chat with all of us. Not gonna lie, I was really nervous. I mentioned this in the comments, but my mom, 50F, is the third of 4 siblings. We'll call them Rose, eldest aunt, Mario, eldest uncle and deceased, my mom, and John, youngest uncle. There's also Jane, Mario's widow, and the aunt that I mentioned in this post who took out the baby. Rose is pretty much my grandma's golden child, in a good way, the second mother to her siblings, and overall a very strong woman. She and her husband have 5 adopted children, and due to the complicated logistics, my uncle and 2 of his sons are doctors, and the youngest of that set of cousins is in college. To hear that they are suddenly coming over was a very big deal. Sunday came, and my best friend and his girlfriend accompanied me to Grandma's house for moral support. Rose and her family were already there, and I spent most of the time avoiding my mom and sister. Deep down, I knew my mom wouldn't dare to yell or call me out in front of Rose, as she's scared of making her angry. After some hours, Rose finally addressed the elephant in the room. It was a long, emotional discussion, and we all ended up crying, so I'll sum up the main points. Firstly, baby nephew is a human being, not a stray puppy to be passed around. He needs some stability. Secondly, stop with the if you could afford to or wish to have a child, why did you have it comments. The nephew is here and he's not going anywhere, let's focus on solutions. To my sister, as a mother, you need to learn to put your child first. While it is okay to rely on help sometimes, don't do it all the time. It's bad for the baby and the others involved. To my mother, stop enabling her. To the rest of the family, unless you're willing to offer some solutions, don't meddle in other people's affairs. And lastly, to me, about the babysitting schedule, well done, kiddo. I cried in relief. My sister then admitted that while she loves my nephew, she felt unfit to be a mother and wasn't fully aware of the responsibility it would take to raise him. Apparently, my mother was aware of that, and her response was to make me babysit my nephew to make my sister feel less stressed out, and yes, to hopefully make me change my mind about having kids in the future. Rose also talked to Mom about that. Rose then said that, worst case scenario, she and my cousins discussed it, and either her eldest son or daughter were willing to adopt my nephew. Apparently, both discussed it with their respective spouses, and all were on board if it came to that. To be honest, while it is good that my nephew would be in a loving and safe home, as Rose and my cousins are amazing people, it would hurt not seeing him as often anymore. Rose emphasized to my sister to think carefully, and that if it came to that, it would be a permanent adoption, not a daycare service where she could dump him for days and weeks and then pick him up later. That's pretty much it. My sister will be seeing a therapist next week. My mom and I have apologized, and I clarified that I didn't actually want to be reimbursed for the money in my nephew's college fund. Some members of the extended family also apologized for pressuring me to babysit in the first place. I'm back at home and have agreed to babysit 3 times a week according to my personal schedule and for a reasonable period of time. During one of those 3 times, my sister will be joining me as she admitted she didn't really know my nephew and hadn't truly bonded with him. Since the baby is somewhat attached to me, the 3 of us will be spending some time together. Overall, I think it was a good resolution, but time will tell. I really hope my sister will improve and become the mom my nephew deserves. Thank you all for the support in the comments. Whenever I felt that what I did was wrong, your comments really helped to lessen the guilt, and some of you even made me laugh. Hopefully, this will be my last update, so thank you all.